phone, and I thought that was a reasonable point. So I don't expect any problems in here, but if I see it, then I can say, okay, you just lost the privilege, and you got to put it up. But otherwise, just don't let me see it. You can put it up, but you can also just keep it away so I don't see it.
Have you updated your photos yet, or are they still random?
They're still random.
I think you should just leave it like that.
It really warms my heart to see all these.
Strangers I know that.
You know how you look at directions that don't make sense to you like immediately, so then you're just like, screw it. Alright, anything from 1.5 that I can go through, answer a question on, talk about, clarify? One five was good? Gucci? No, we're not that. Okay. Alright, let's jump to 1.6 then. In your notes, there's a part of your notes where it tells you.
Please pardon the interruption. Students with last names N through P, please head to the library at this time for your school picture and ID.
Wait, Dana, are you dressing as a Reese Lawful? Are you? Yes. I'm wearing a very small outfit when I wore my first day.
You wear the same outfit like every year, so you can.
Oh, that would be awesome to have like a crop top.
Watch the shirt just get
It's
smaller.
the same outfit as a priest.
No, the same
No.
outfit, so exact shirts.
I wanted the same thing.
You look like it's indecent.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the notes for 1.6, they told you this. They gave you these four, not this middle one. These four. So if you've gone through and filled out the notes, I think they left them blank, and then you have to like watch the notes to be able to like fill in what the actual numbers were. This is like a much weaker version of the rule than you can actually use. So if I were you, I would above that or next to it or something somehow. This is a much more powerful version of the same rule. And we'll do a couple examples. These are actually fairly easy because you just kind of look at the coefficients basically. But they start from the idea that we know the limit at 0. And then they'll like make you manipulate to get to other answers. So let me give you a second to write. These two are already in there. These two are like an improved version of what is in your book. So I'll write these down.
She's terrible.
She just like looked at me and I said,
She's terrible.
it's bad.
So right here.
So attractive from the other side.
Session trig limits.
Why?
She didn't know 30 divided by 5.
My favorite thing to ask her is 9 times 1.
She
And she sits there and looks at you for a second. And then she says like,
She's terrible.
3?
Who are you just trashing?
My sister.
Sister.
Oh,
She came to my house and I helped her.
how old is she?
She's a freshman. If you just look,
Oh.
hey, look for her like, I'll give you a picture of her. If you see her in the hallway,
You can
just look
add
at her
it
and
to-
say,
You can add it to your
just say Virginia, 9 times 1. And she'll just stare at you.
She will. She go.
And she'll be like,
You want me to just make her feel badly about herself?
it'd be funny.
Hilarious.
Then she'd go home and be like, some guy said 9 times 1 to me.
Okay, so like this problem here, number 6. The rule is, and if anyone wants to like understand the rule, I can sit with you and show you. why it works, but these really don't come up very often, so I'm not too worried about it. But if I have the sine of ax over bx, the limit is a over b. So in this case, a is 3, b is 1, so your a over b is 3 over 1, and your answer is 3. Like, you're literally just taking these two those coefficients, that's going to be your answer. So like number 7, what's the answer? It's 7/9. So I can get into a long thing of why it is, but it just doesn't come up very often, so I'm not that worried about that. And you have your book, so you can write down the rule, and then you just grab those two coefficients. So the sine ones are pretty easy. So if I gave you like I don't even know how to make this hard, but let's say sine of x over 5x. What's the answer? 1/5, right? There's a 1 there. Grab those coefficients, and that's your answer. The cosine ones are a little bit trickier. You usually have to do some factoring to get to it. So, not doing this problem, but I want to remind you, if you have like x squared minus a squared, and I asked you to factor that, that's the difference of squares. What does that break down into? X plus a, x minus a. If you want to like be convinced of that, FOIL it. So that would give you x squared. This would give you negative ax, and this would give you positive ax, but what would happen to those two is they cancel out, and then a times a is negative a squared. So very often you'll have to do that with like cosine of x. So this is also just the difference of squares. It's just like cosine, so it looks like it's more confusing. But when I had like x squared minus a squared, what I'm doing is taking the square root of the first thing, putting it in the front of both parentheses, taking the square root of the second thing, putting it in the back of both parentheses, and then you pop your plus minus. Do the same thing. So what's the square root of cosine squared? Cosine. Throw that in the front. The square root of 1 is 1. Throw that in the back. You got your plus minus. So then we get out of there. Then what can I do? I can cancel. I really should technically be writing limit as x approaches 0 out here every single time. And then I end up with limit as x approaches 0 of cosine of x minus 1 over x. And this is kind of your goal, is to get to that because you know what that is. So that's 0. So you just been with the sine and with the sine ones, it's really straightforward. Look at the coefficients. The cosine ones, you're always trying to get to this, and usually you can factor to do that. Can I help on those two?
You see the middle, right there, right there. You see the top one? Just right there.
I think that's probably the hardest things in here, just because they're not, you guys aren't super comfortable with sine and cosine. I don't know, anybody that started it, you're like, hey, what about this one, what about this one? Yeah. 5. Well, I bet you can do it now. Right? So like yesterday, it was probably weird, but now, what's the answer? It's 5 here. It's 3, right? It'd be 3 over 1. Yeah. So like number 6, I think yesterday, that's probably confusing. Go through like the actual process of that. It does get kind of weird. We don't have to worry about the actual process. What's number 6? Just straight up the fraction. Some of these you're just going to plug in. Some of these you're going to have to factor first. Like, let's take a gander at number 12, let's say. No, 11. I'll do 11 and 12. So for 11, if I plug 1/3 in, you're going to get 0 on the top, you're going to get 0 on the bottom. If you get 0 on the top and 0 on the bottom, when that happens and when. Just the more you do, you'll get to kind of see that. But I can recognize it's going to be factoring, and I know I'm going to have to factor the top. And this is kind of one of those annoying ones to factor, right? Because the first number's not a 1. You can just be like, multiply to this and add to this. So it's one of those like kind of trial and error ones. But I'm pretty darn sure one of these pieces is going to be 3x minus 1. Because if that 3x minus 1 is still at the bottom, I'm still going to get 0 when I plug in, and that's not going to work. So I got to factor this. And yes, that is somewhat annoying. But I'm fairly certain there's going to be a 3x minus 1. And then I can just kind of like work from there. So if this is a 3x, and I got to get to 6x squared, what does that have to be? It's got to be 2x. And this is a negative 5, and that's negative 1. Doesn't that have to be positive 5? And then you can check it. You know, you got 6x squared. This would be 15x. This would be negative 2x. 15x plus negative 2x is that. So, it does match up. Then I can cancel these out. And I can plug 1/3 in for x. Because now I won't get 0 over 0. I'll get like an actual answer. How's that for 11? Yeah.
For like the answer, would they want us to like simplify it all the way down? So do they want us to multiply it through?
So if it's a free response question, you are allowed to leave it like that. And I would encourage you to leave it like that on a free response. Because you might screw up the simplify. Like not you personally anyway. I'm not like this too dumb. But you're allowed to leave addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So I would stop right here. With multiple choice, they're not going to have it like this, so you got to like work through, and then you'd have to go, okay, 2/3 plus 5, and like actually get a compound in there, work it out. So it just depends on the situation. But if you did, like, let's say you got to this, and you kept going, and you, for some reason, told me it was like 7/3. You said a brain fart. Now I got to mark it wrong. Where you actually had it right, and you had nothing to gain by continuing, you decided to continue anyways, and now I got to be like, yeah, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I know you had it, but you should have stopped. So you only have to lose if you're doing that. I'm glad you asked that. Any other questions on 11? Right, 12. Let's take a gain to there. If I plug in 0 right now, what am I going to get? I can have a 0 on the bottom. That would be undefined. Like 10 over 0 is undefined. I'll get 0 in both, right? So if I get 0 over 0, that's called indeterminate. And then I got to find another way. I'm not done. So what could I do there? What's another way? What could I do? I can take an x out of all of those, can't I? Like, couldn't I divide this by x, and this by x? So what I would have there then is 7x plus, be careful, that x over x doesn't just disappear. What's x divided by x? So you have 7x plus 1 over 1. Now if I plug in 0, I won't get 0 over 0. So now I can go, okay, 7 times 0 plus 1 over 1 is 1. Those two okay? Any others that jump out? I basically want to give you guys time to work because I want you to come up, like, see where you struggle and see where we get stuck. Are there any right now that you're like, okay, hold on, this would look rough, or I was looking at last night and got stuck here. You just want time to go. Alright, I'll set you work. As you come up with questions, let me know. If I get the same question a couple times, I'll throw it on the board. I'll set you work.